Thanks for joining us today. You have tuned in to Business Daily. I'm Ji-yoon in Seoul. Let's get started with a look at today's highlights. President Moon Jae-in's focus in his first 100 days in office was on jobs, growth, and welfare. We'll sit down with an expert to talk about how far the Moon administration has come and what tasks remain. The market for biometric technology is growing, which allows user authentication by detecting unique biological characteristics of each individual. These stories and more coming right up. We begin with things at a look at President Moon Jae-in's press conference earlier today to mark his 100th day in office. His remarks, especially those during an unscripted Q&A session, are already making headlines across the globe. Our Kim Ji-yeon starts us off.
During a press conference held Thursday marking President Moon Jae-in's 100th day in office, the president dismissed concerns of a tax hike to fund the government's income-driven growth initiative. The president said the issue has already been covered when the administration announced its tax reforms earlier this month. The measures included a hike on the corporate tax rate from the current 22% to 25% and on the nominal tax rate of top conglomerates as well as the super rich.
우리 사회의 어떤 조세의 공평성이나 또는 우리 사회의 그 불평등을 해소하기 위한 소득 재분배 기능을 위해서라든지 또는 앞으로 더 복지를 확대하기 위해서 필요한 재원을 마련하기 위한 그런 방안이든 이 추가적인 정세의 어떤 필요성에 대해서 국민들의 공론이 모아진다면 그리고 합의가 이루어진다면 정부도 그것을 검토할 수 있다고 봅니다.
Also, the president emphasized major restructuring of public agencies and their state-funded projects by tackling redundancies and scrapping projects with low returns. He said the restructuring process will be evident in his upcoming 2018 budget proposal scheduled for submission to the National Assembly in September. Referring to its real estate measures introduced earlier this month, President Moon said they seem to be working, as they are the toughest set of measures the government has laid out so far to curb housing speculation. The president added the administration could unveil stronger measures if necessary, but for now, he says the focus is on providing the working class and newlyweds with affordable rental properties, with plans to increase the number of public rental housing for the youth to be unveiled soon. On the trade front, the president said the government is confident in handling requests from the U.S. to make revisions to the bilateral free trade agreement. He said the status of Korea's Trade Department has been elevated so that it could effectively deal with changes to the FTA with its American counterparts. The president also elaborated on the FTA's positive impact on both countries, dismissing criticisms that the agreement has led to job losses in America and exacerbate a U.S. trade deficit. Kim Ji-yeon, Business Daily.
So ever since President Moon Jae-in took office, it seems that he has turned things around mostly for the better. In fact, his approval ratings topped 80% according to a recent survey by the local pollster Brain, in which respondents highlighted communication as one of President Moon's strengths. So with that, let's take a closer look at his first 100 days in office and what changes came about during this time.
President Moon Jae-in's so-called J-nomics focuses on creating jobs and achieving income-driven growth. Up until now, Korea's economic recovery had been largely constrained by the deeply embedded structural problems that continue to beset the domestic economy. So with hopes of increasing household income and creating more quality jobs, the Moon administration has been stepping up multi-pronged efforts from a variety of different angles.
국가의 모든 역량을 일자리 창출로 집중하고 있습니다. 일자리위원회를 구성했고 제 집무실에 일자리 상황판을 설치하여 직접 점검하고 있습니다.
Nevertheless, despite such positive changes, President Moon has had his fair share of criticisms. His economic agenda of providing non-regular workers with permanent positions in the public sector and raising the minimum wage in such a short period of time has come under fire over fears that abrupt changes could hinder local businesses. And the country's massive household debt still remains a concern, with lingering questions as to how the government will finance its plans to boost the economy.
And to tell us more about this, Professor Kim Se-won from Ewha Women's University joins us in the studio today. So good to see you.
Pleasure to be here.
All right, so President Moon's job creation policies are being pushed forward rather quickly because he believes that employment will eventually lead to more income-led growth.
Right. The focus of President Moon's policy is on creating more jobs. And there are lots of problems, economic problems around the Korean economy. And the largest pain is related to jobs. For example, the old generations are suffering from less job securities, and the young people are also suffering from less job opportunities. So President Moon believes that by providing more jobs to the economy, particularly starting from the public sector, we can distribute the total income more evenly to the older people, and that's going to be another economic growth momentum.
Now, there are questions, though, over the effectiveness of his plans in regards to creating more jobs and also raising minimum wage and all that. So what are your thoughts on this?
Only 100 days have been passed since the start of the President Moon's administration. So I think it is too early to assess between success or failure of policy effectiveness. But it is true that particularly between economies, that there are lots of concerns about the policy effectiveness in the future. But the fundamental difference between new government and the previous government is previous government pursued higher income through improving corporations' competitiveness. However, the new government is pursuing higher income through fair income distribution.
All right. Now, President Moon's push to raise the minimum wage has been met with some opposition from small and medium-sized businesses. Tell us more about this, and how effective do you think this plan will be once it's put into effect starting next year?
Well, actually, as we know, President Moon decided to increase minimum wage over 16% from next year. And we've heard lots of concerns about this, like that increases more on unemployment, and that decrease international competitiveness. And we also heard about lots of difficult problems of medium and small-sized companies. But actually, these are all based on theoretical analysis. The real economy's reaction to higher minimum wage is so different over countries and cases. So I believe that the real result of a higher minimum wage depends on improving labor productivity by co-works between employers and employees.
Now, the problem, though, is how the government will finance all these plans. I mean, some are saying that raising taxes would be the only way, while the government has said that there will be no universal tax rate hike. So what are your thoughts on this?
Well, to carry out President Moon's policy agendas, $178 trillion is more needed. And President Moon's government is not clearly explaining how to finance these new projects. But the problem is, recently Korean government, President Moon's government increased the tax on super rich people and super rich corporations. But that only increases tax revenues over 5 trillion won. So that's not enough. So to carry out all the policy agendas of President Moon's, in the end, they need to increase the tax overall. But actually, they are pretty cautious on this because the history says that if we increase the tax this year, you will lose the election next year.
All right. And there hasn't also been any clear solutions to Korea's massive household debt. Now, the government has said that it will come up with a response with this issue sometime this month. So what can we expect on this front?
The size of household debt in Korea is 1,400 trillion won, and it is steadily increasing even now. But it is really hot potato to President Moon's government because there's no clear solution about it. So it looks to me that they do not have clear policies on this. The situation goes like this. If they want to decrease the household debt, they need to increase the interest rate and provide less loans to private sector. That even further cools down the economy, under a difficult situation of the Korean economy.
Now, the good news is that the majority of the public is quite satisfied with what the Moon administration has been doing so far. So where do you see the administration going from here on out, and what are some of the tasks that need to be performed?
Actually, President Moon's policy is entering a new theme of economic policies, which is not experienced in Korea before. So there are lots of concerns about this, particularly between economists and the media, about the ultimate result of on Korean economy. So I think it is important to clarify the ultimate goal of the economic policies like economic growth or supporting low-income people or clean environment. And for the details of the policies, they need to be more open to criticism, even though they believe that criticism is not fair.
Well, overall, not a very bad report card for the first 100 days in office for President Moon, right?
Right.
All right. Thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you very much.
The number of Korean farms with tainted eggs keeps on growing, now discovered in more than 60 farms, including 29 with dangerous levels of pesticides. Some stores have resumed the sales of safety-approved eggs, but it may be a while before distribution of eggs can be fully normalized. Our Park Hee-jun has the latest.
Major retail stores have resumed selling eggs on Wednesday afternoon, only a day after removing them from shelves due to worries about pesticide-contaminated eggs. But consumers are still afraid to buy eggs, which is apparent in the drastic fall in sales. As the fipronil and bifenthrin-tainted eggs are causing a nationwide egg scare in Korea, people are avoiding eggs and other products that contain eggs, especially after it was revealed that eggs labeled as environmentally friendly were in fact not environmentally friendly at all. Moderate levels of pesticides have been detected in eggs from a total of 64 farms, including 60 that have been selling eggs certified as environmentally friendly. Although the amount of substances found is not considered harmful, the eggs will no longer be able to be sold with a certification label. E-Mart was the first of the major supermarkets to restart sales on Wednesday. It displayed eggs from the farms that were confirmed to be clean of pesticides. Lotte Mart also began selling eggs from government-inspected farms, with convenience stores and online retailers doing the same. Meanwhile, the government has revealed the second set of results from the ongoing inspection and has announced that it will complete its inspection of the remaining egg farms by Thursday, and its inspection of eggs that have already reached distributors by Friday. As of midday Thursday, eggs from a total of 29 farms were found to have dangerous levels of pesticides. Fipronil was detected on 7 farms, while bifenthrin was detected on 19 farms, with other pesticides found at the 3 remaining farms. Consumers are advised to avoid eggs that originate from those farms. Park Hee-jun, Business Daily.
In response to the growing health scare over tainted eggs, Prime Minister Lee Nak-yeon called on government ministries to take appropriate measures to the crisis.
The Agriculture Ministry must devise measures to foster an eco-friendly livestock industry, including installing CCTV at farms as part of measures to allow continuous monitoring.
Prime Minister Lee also ordered the government to provide continuous updates on how it's leading quarantine efforts and normalizing the distribution of eggs. The tainted egg crisis comes at a time when egg prices have already soared due to a supply crunch following a June outbreak of avian influenza here in the country. Meanwhile, the National Assembly has also sprung into action with its Agriculture Committee holding a briefing session on the tainted egg crisis. Lawmakers questioned Agriculture Minister Kim Myung-nok on the government's safety management protocol, as well as its plan to collect and dispose eggs containing pesticide. Minister Kim apologized for the latest crisis, saying the ministry will create a system to ensure better food safety for Korean citizens. Tests are underway, and the government has vowed to destroy eggs found to contain any levels of pesticide, whether it's above or below the legal limit. On top of that, any products made from eggs that have come out of the affected farms will also be recalled and disposed of. The government has distanced itself from a huge power outage in Taiwan, arguing its efforts to step away from nuclear energy is being handled differently. On Tuesday, more than 6 million households and semiconductor plants on the island were hit by a massive blackout. It happened when a precarious supply balance gave way, inviting criticism of the Taiwanese president's plan to free the country from its dependence on nuclear energy. Answering critics concerned of a similar outage that could happen here at home, the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy noted that Korea's power structure is different than that of Taiwan's. It also said it will make decisions based on supplying a stable power base through 2030, as outlined in its 8th Basic Plan for Electricity Supply and Demand, while making sure a safety net is in place. The U.S. Federal Reserve is prepared to reduce its balancing sheets made up of massive bond holdings purchased during the last recession. However, in regards to the timing of its next rate hike, several officials were hesitant to pull the trigger due to low inflation, which remains below the Fed's target goal. Our Oh Soo-young reports.
There is a strong consensus among Fed officials to scale down the bank's asset portfolio, now standing at a staggering $4.5 trillion, built up through 3 rounds of quantitative easing. Minutes from the central bank's July meeting indicate measures to scale down the Fed's balance sheet could be announced at its September policy meeting, with the roll-off to begin soon after. However, board members remain split on the timing of future rate hikes, with some officials wary of low inflation, which remains below the Fed's 2% target. While some remain optimistic that price growth will eventually reach its target, others say the Fed must exercise patience under the current circumstances. The central bank's preferred measure of inflation dropped 1.5% in June, compared to 1.8% in March, raising doubts on the wisdom of raising rates in the immediate timeframe. Overall, the FOMC members' prognosis of the US economy was mostly healthy, especially in its labour market and household spending. However, the minutes cited weak retail sales and sluggish wage growth as factors of concern moving forward. Fed officials are also expecting little help from President Trump's fiscal drive, with Washington's tax reform and infrastructure plans still stuck in limbo for the time being. The Fed's upcoming rate hike, whether or not it occurs before the year is up, may also put the Bank of Korea in a very tight spot. Despite surging exports, some experts say it's a one-off phenomenon due to high semiconductor demand, and that another rate cut, in addition to the government's supplementary budget, is necessary to keep economic growth on track. Oh Soo-young, Business Daily.
Korea's biggest conglomerates saw their operating income surge in the first half of this year, while the size of their combined workforce edged down slightly. According to Market Tracker CEO Score on Thursday, the combined operating income of Korea's top 30 business groups was close to $46.7 billion in the first half, up nearly 48% on year. This is mainly due to strong earnings by Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix, whose first half operating income rose by 104% and 478% respectively on the back of strong chip sales. But the number of workers inched down 0.4% as the country's 3 major shipyards laid off an estimated 8,300 employees in the first half in the wake of last year's huge downturn in the industry. The world's top-selling smartphone in the second quarter was Apple's iPhone 7. According to Strategy Analytics, Apple's latest flagship device alone has shipped close to 17 million units in the April to June period, taking up 4.7% of the global market share. The runner-up was its sister device with a larger screen, the iPhone 7 Plus, with a close to 4.2% market share. Meanwhile, Samsung's Galaxy S8 was the world's best-selling Android model in the second quarter. Together with the bigger S8 Plus model, they shipped out 19.3 million units to capture 5.3% global market share. You can now make payments with the palm of your hands instead of using your credit card and unlock smartphones simply by scanning your eyes or face. Biometric authentication technology identifies users through their unique physical and behavioral characteristics and has seen wide adoption in recent years. Now, here's a closer look at the market for biometric authentication, which is being hailed as a core next-generation technology.
A new type of smartphone was recently launched in Korea. The world's first fingerprint, iris, face recognition, as all three biometric authentication technology was installed. It recognizes the user's face as it connects to the smartphone. Once you enter your iris information, you can avoid complicated authentication methods and make easy payments and transfer money as well.
I had to memorize my password and also had to carry my authentication number card, but it is fast and easier because of biometrics.
Biometric authentication, a system that authenticates users based on biological characteristics or behavioral characteristics of a person. Since unique body information is used, there is no risk of theft, loss, or forgery, as it's emerging as a next-generation security technology. The method of paying through such biometric information is called BioPay. A major discount retailer recently introduced BioPay. Here, you don't need cash, cards, or even your smartphone.
저 핸드페이로 결제할게요.
It recognizes the user's vein, and the payment is processed with the palm of your hand.
감사합니다.
It's stable, and it only takes 10 seconds to pay, since the process of exchanging your card is not needed.
When you go to the market and buy things, you have a lot of things to carry. But since it uses easy recognition, it's easy to pay and easy to use.
You can easily handle complicated card-related tasks that normally require complex authentication.
Customers have been using plastic cards for decades and recently have been using their cell phones as a payment method. But later on, they will not need them anymore. That's the process of adapting and evolving. We plan to expand the use of these new types of payments to places where they may be used heavily, like department stores, cinemas, and more.
The biometric market is rapidly expanding globally. It is expected that Korea will start to attract attention with the fintech boom and grow by about 15% each year to about 500 billion won by 2020. In particular, non-face-to-face transactions have spread as a result of the launch of internet-only banks, which has become a clear means of personal information security. The government will also adopt these means of authentication as part of its next generation of e-government services. But there are some challenges that biometric technology has to solve. The threat of hacking.
Since the characteristics of biometric technology are characterized by uniqueness and invariance, there's the threat of infringement of privacy and private information being leaked. It's possible through online services and 3D printing that counterfeit biometric information can be produced, and that's more serious than personal information leakage.
Telebiorecognition technology, which complements these shortcomings, is being developed. It's a next-generation biometric authentication technology that uses biosignals, and it's advantageous in that compared to other biometric information, it's hard to be replicated or copied.
이 그래프들은 지금 30명에 대해서 심전도를 사람마다 각각 다른 심전도를 나타낸 그림이고요. 저희는 이러한 연구를 바탕으로 스마트 밴드를 이용한 텔레바이오메트릭스 기술을 연구하고 있습니다.
The Korea Internet Promotion Agency plans to combine biological and behavioral characteristics for the first time in the world through this research jointly with Spain and the United States and complete technology development by the end of next year.
스마트 밴드를 이용하게 되면은 생체 신호를
Through smartbands, it can be used by users who need higher security because it can continuously measure the biosignals and can continuously verify them. Also, not only can it be used for everyday things like bank transactions, the system can be applied to the healthcare system, remembering the bed or car seat specifications of each person.
기본적인 바이오 정보를
Basic bioinformation needs to be protected technically and administratively. Therefore, I hope that the government and the private sector together will protect bioinformation in the near future so that the general public can use it safely and conveniently.
Biometric authentication technology, which is quickly making inroads into our daily lives. With continuous technology development and commercialization efforts, we look forward to Korea becoming a leading global player in this market.
And that does it for today. Thanks for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with more business news that matters to you. Until then, goodbye.